Gretna Green. In a town linked with marriage, people today voting on a divorce. Along the border in the town of Coldstream, devolution the only topic of the day. Divisions here are deep.
It should have went the last time we had a referendum. We should have broken away then.
Taxes will go up. I can't see anything. Maybe not immediately, but they will.
I want full independence. That's why I voted yes.
Nowhere more than the border is the issue of devolution more significant or complex. Bill Smith, an Englishman on the Scottish side, on his way to the polling booth.
I shall be voting yes, yes. Because basically I think the Scots have been treated appallingly over the years.
Just yards across the river in England, there was of course no voting today, but there is anxiety, especially for those like Nikki Black with business interests across the border.
It feels like Scotland's going to take a big leap forward, but I don't know where it's going to land.
The length and breadth of the country, Scots have voted. Here a station in Fort William. And even helicopters have been used in the furthest flung polling stations, ensuring all of Scotland has the chance for their vote to count. Tonight, from the tip of Shetland to here on the border at the River Tweed, people across Scotland are eagerly awaiting the referendum result. In just a few hours, they'll know how significant this boundary may become. Linda Kennedy, News at 10 on the Scotland-England border.
One vote which will be watched very closely tonight is the one from Aberdeen. Last time round in 1979, it voted narrowly against devolution, but Aberdeen's changed a great deal since then, since it became the oil capital of Europe. Our political correspondent Hugh Pym is there.
Well, in just a few minutes' time, the ballot boxes will start arriving behind me here from all around the city of Aberdeen. Now, the first thing the returning officer and his staff will have to do is sort out the different ballot papers, because what's unique about this referendum is that there are two questions on different papers. First of all, on the white paper, do you or do you not agree there should be a Scottish Parliament? Then, on the green paper, do you or do you not agree that it should have tax-varying powers? Now, originally it was thought we wouldn't get a result here till about 2:30 in the morning. I'm told it could be a bit quicker than that, 1:30 maybe even, and that's because the turnout is thought to have been low. It did start off very slow around Aberdeen, took a little bit of time to pick up, didn't really even get going till about 5:30 with a traditional rush home from tea. And even then, I'm told it's not that much above normal local council election levels. Indeed, according to one official, it could struggle to get above 50%. Well, the reason for that, maybe a bit more apathy here still towards the devolution idea, maybe a bit more scepticism than in Glasgow and Edinburgh. We shall have to see. Certainly on that crucial tax-varying question, it really does still look too close to call. That's the picture here in Aberdeen. Now back to the studio in Edinburgh.
English voters, of course, haven't been asked what they think about a Scottish Parliament, but this referendum, nevertheless, has considerable implications for England and the way it's ruled. Here's our political editor, Michael Brunson.
Dawn at the Forth Bridge, the start of a very special day here. If by the end of it Scottish voters say no to their own parliament, then the idea's dead for at least a generation. But with even the piper who plays for the passers-by on Edinburgh's Princes Street sporting a Yes, Yes badge, the new parliament due to open in the year 2000 seems a certainty. Even then, says one leading academic, don't look for violent change.
On the one hand, Westminster retains sovereignty, so at any point Westminster could take powers back if it was really upset about the way the Scottish Parliament used them. And it will also be constrained by its own electorate. I don't think the Scottish electorate is going to be in favour of very high levels of taxation, for example, and they will constrain the behaviour of the Scottish MPs.
The bright new Scottish office in Leith already has wide administrative powers north of the border. But in all these areas and many new ones, the new Parliament will now be able to decide a distinctly Scottish policy.
The right to belong to a trade union.
In education, for example, the new Parliament might well venture an early look at the decision taken in London to impose university tuition fees.
Well, although the Parliament might like to abolish fees, I don't think it would have the resources to do so. But what it could do is insist that the new fee income be used to promote wider access. So it wouldn't be a question of abolishing the fees, but it might want to encourage or even require the universities in Scotland to use the fees to include social groups that have not traditionally gone to university.
But does any of this matter for the rest of Her Majesty's United Kingdom? Conservatives at Westminster insist that it most certainly does, that the very continued presence of Scottish MPs in the House of Commons and what they can and cannot do will become an issue, for example, to their English constituents.
We don't think it would make sense for Scottish members of the Westminster Parliament to come here to London to tell us how to run our schools and hospitals if we have no say over how schools and hospitals are run in Scotland. Even more ridiculous is that those same Scottish Westminster MPs under this Labour scheme would not be able to vote on schools and hospitals back home. They wouldn't be able to decide schools and hospitals in Glasgow or Edinburgh, but they would in Wokingham.
But as tonight the Union flag continues to fly over this city's glorious public buildings, so the government says that it would be for the Sovereign Parliament of Westminster to tackle any constitutional difficulties that might arise. Michael Brunson, News at 10, Edinburgh.
And Michael Brunson is with me now. Mike, what would a low vote do to the result? Would it invalidate it?
No, it won't. And that is the difference, of course, between this time and last time. Now, in '79, there was a low vote and there was a high hurdle. There was a certain percentage over which people had, the number of voters had to reach before it was accepted. That wasn't reached, and therefore devolution died. This time round, there is a simple requirement for a clear majority. Having said that, I don't think there's any doubt whatsoever that Donald Dewar and Tony Blair would like it to be a thumping great majority in favour of the Parliament, and they would also prefer a very clear verdict on the question of the tax-raising powers. If it happens, well, of course, that'll be a real punch on the nose. I think it still is going to happen. I think the Scots are going to vote, perhaps on a low turnout for a Scottish Parliament. We'll have to wait and see on the tax-raising question, but I think that probably is going to be approved too. And what government sources are saying tonight is that if it is that way on a low turnout, well, we shall simply have to work very hard indeed to make certain that people really do understand the implications of it and build up the idea. And of course, part of the problem is that the apathy may have arisen because people have assumed for so long that it's going to happen. So we shall have to see.
Mike, how soon would a clear picture emerge of precisely what's happened? We heard the vote for the tax-raising powers is very close.
Yes. Well, I think it might emerge quite early, because one of the early results is they're doing it by councils. And one of the early results at about midnight comes from East Renfrewshire. Now, East Renfrewshire is a technical name, if you like, for the prosperous commuter suburbs of Glasgow. Now, if that vote there went yes, yes, where there's obviously quite a percentage of people who are against it, well, then that obviously means it's all over. If it's yes, no, well, obviously there's a bit of a fight on our hands. But I suspect that that may be one of the early indications as to how things are going.
Michael Brunson, thank you very much. And that's all for now from Edinburgh. For the rest of the day's news, over to London and to Julia Somerville.
Thank you, Trevor. A small army of scouts, guides and other volunteers began the task today of removing the floral tributes to Princess Diana from St James's Palace. They're expected to move on to Buckingham Palace and Kensington Palace tomorrow. The total number of blooms has been estimated at 60 million. Some of the freshest have already been delivered to hospitals. Here's Caroline Kerr.
It's a mammoth task and a sad one, removing by hand the hundreds of thousands of bouquets laid in Diana's honour. Each one is now being carefully gathered by Girl Guides and Scouts, instructed to treat them with the respect with which they were laid.
There are thousands and thousands of tons of flowers and objects of various kinds, and I don't think it's exaggerating to say millions of pieces of paper. And we want to deal with them all in the best, most respectful way.
The dead flowers are being separated out to be taken to Kensington Gardens, where they'll be used for compost, while the fresh ones are being put aside for hospitals and old people's homes. Among the most poignant tributes are the toys left by children. They'll go to charity. The volunteers say they've also been touched by the personal messages to the princess, which will be preserved for her family.
Even today, people are coming in large numbers to view the flowers and indeed to lay fresh ones of their own. But there is an understanding among members of the public that the time has come to start clearing away this huge floral tribute.
The first flowers were laid outside her home on the day after the princess died. Over the next week, they grew day by day until they came to cover huge areas outside all the major London palaces. Today, Diana's brother visited the Chancellor in Downing Street to discuss a permanent national memorial to mark his sister's life and perpetuate her work. But the temporary floral memorial, which was the people's tribute, is now disappearing. And the feeling is growing that life must go on, a sentiment reflected by Elton John, speaking in the United States.
The human spirit is very tough, And, you know, however tough it's been for me, there have been others, you know, you just have to carry on, you know. You really do have to put things in perspective. You have to grieve, and then you have to get on with your life.
This afternoon, the first of Diana's flowers were brought to Great Ormond Street Hospital, one of her favourite charities, so that children living with serious illnesses could start to benefit from the respects paid to a dead princess. Caroline Kerr, News at 10, Central London.
Next on News at 10, more of today's top stories, including millions gain, but who'll miss out when British Gas cuts its bills? New fears for the peace process tonight after the IRA's warning on guns. And Mother Teresa's legacy to the sick and destitute of Calcutta.
Now they are human beings. They have a status like you and me now.
British Gas announced today that all their customers will have their bills cut next year by an average of £28. Further reductions will be given for paying quickly or by direct debit. Consumer groups say that's unfair to poorer households who prefer to pay in advance. Helen Wright reports.
There'll be lower bills for 16 million households as a result of the 9% discount, according to Centrica. The company, formerly part of British Gas, said today its own savings on supply and transport costs had prompted the price cut. But the city sees the announcement as an attempt to fight off competitors in the increasingly open domestic gas market. Competition to supply gas was first introduced in April last year in Cornwall, Devon and Somerset, giving 9 alternative suppliers to choose from. The scheme was then extended to Avon, Dorset, Kent and East and West Sussex, offering 14 alternative suppliers. There'll be a further extension in November to Scotland and the North East, and by the end of next year to the whole country.
I believe, as I've always believed, they will get the best package of value for money from British Gas. And once they read the small print of the competitors' offerings, they'll find it doesn't match up with British Gas on price and on service.
The 9% cut announced today will only apply to customers who pay by direct debit or who settle their bills within 10 days. And it'll come on top of the discounts they already enjoy. The 1 million people who use meters on prepayment schemes won't get any reduction, and that's angered watchdogs.
Benefits are being distributed to the reasonably affluent and those who have credit, and there's nothing in this for low-income and poor consumers.
The discount comes into effect in the new year, and Centrica isn't ruling out further price cuts if it can once again reduce its own costs. Helen Wright, News at 10.
The IRA has cast a shadow over the Northern Ireland peace talks due to start in Belfast on Monday. It says it won't give up any arms until after there's a political settlement. To do otherwise would be tantamount to surrender, it said. Well, that goes against the Mitchell principles, which Sinn Féin had agreed to honour earlier this week. Adrian Britton reports.
To be allowed into the peace talks at Stormont next Monday, Sinn Féin has had to agree to 6 rules drafted by the Mitchell Commission. But after today's IRA statement, there is now confusion as to how far the party truly represents the Republican movement. According to the Irish Taoiseach, the responsibility of Sinn Féin's role is not in question.
How the government view this matter is that I expect the Mitchell principles to be honoured by the entire Republican movement.
But in the Republican newspaper Anne Foblacht, an IRA spokesman says the IRA would have problems with sections of the Mitchell principles. Significantly, he adds, the IRA is not a participant in these talks. And on the prospect of decommissioning before a political settlement, he says, decommissioning on our part would be tantamount to surrender.
This worrying development will be raised in the talks process, and one, I think, very important aspect of the talks is that these matters can be raised so that people are aware exactly what is meant by the statements.
But Sinn Féin denies its credibility has been undermined.
I think it's always helpful if people set out their positions. It sets out the parameters then of the work that politicians have to do.
Yet the IRA statement could determine whether Ulster Unionists take part in the talks themselves.
I think the government is going to have to look again at Sinn Féin's position. After all, Sinn Féin signed the Mitchell principles.
Few people expect the Ulster Unionists to pull out of the talks altogether, but they may find it impossible now to sit down face to face with Sinn Féin, insisting instead on proximity talks similar to those that we saw in Bosnia, where the parties are in different rooms negotiating via mediators. Adrian Britton, News at 10, Westminster.
The US Secretary of State Madeleine Albright has called on Israel to stop building homes for Jewish settlers on the West Bank. On the second day of her visit to Israel, she said a halt to the programme could help bring about a lasting peace with the Palestinians. Her plea was firmly rejected by the Israeli government. The Archbishop of Canterbury, George Carey, has defended the Church's right to speak out on political issues. Earlier, he'd officially received a Council of Churches report on unemployment and welcomed the government's inquiry into social exclusion. And a judge at Southwark Crown Court called for tougher sentences today after he jailed a man for the maximum of 21 months for publishing a race hate magazine. Mark Atkinson had conducted a campaign against Frank Bruno's mother, which led to her receiving hate mail. Hundreds of thousands of people have been gathering across India to mourn the loss of Mother Teresa, who will be buried on Saturday. She held no public office but spent her life caring unfailingly for the sick and the poor. Much of her work was in Calcutta, where each day, against the odds, millions struggle for survival. For tonight's special report, our Asia correspondent Mark Austin has been in the city to ask what will happen now that she's gone.
In the place Rudyard Kipling called the City of Dreadful Night, the street people of Calcutta are waking to another day. Another day to survive for the hundreds of thousands here whose only home is on the pavements or in the gutters of what used to be the capital of British India. For many of these people, the family food bowls are filled only by charity. Thousands of women line up for the daily handout. In Calcutta, it seems, hunger defeats the shame. A place in this queue is worth fighting for. It's into this world of misery that Mother Teresa brought some hope. Alongside the railway tracks on the outskirts of Calcutta lies a haven for the outcasts, the unwanted of Indian society. Here, in a home started by Mother Teresa, reside the victims of leprosy, living and working together, away from the cruelty inflicted on people like Santoj Gupta.
Because the leprosy is considered as a curse in India, other people will throw stones on them or beat them.
Throw stones or beat them?
Yeah. It was.
And Mother Teresa changed this?
Changed the situation.
It's the leprosy patients here who, on the hand looms in the workshop, make the blue and white cloth that's become a trademark for Mother Teresa's nuns.
They were treated as inhuman. Now they are human beings. They have a status like you and me now.
And so here they're paying homage to the woman who's allowed them to live in dignity. They mourn her passing. But the fear is that now she's gone, the money that her fame attracted will dry up. Not only for her organisation, but for the many other charities working in the slums of Calcutta. By her own admission, the work of Mother Teresa was only a drop in the ocean. It's estimated that more than 2 million people live in appalling conditions like this in Calcutta alone. People who remain in desperate need of help. In the slums along this canal side, the health hazards are obvious. A British charity that's long lived in the shadow of Mother Teresa is trying to improve life for these people.
The scale of the problem is enormous. It's almost incomprehensible. We're standing here by a canal. Behind us you can see there's raw sewage, there's all sorts of waste, industrial waste as well, no doubt. But it is filthy, and they use this to wash in, to bathe in, to wash their utensils. It's at the national level that this problem ought to be addressed, has to be addressed, and can only be addressed.
Nearby, he led us to the families who have spent the last 2 years living in rusting water pipes.
This is your house.
It's shelter, they say, and better than sleeping on the streets. All week, hundreds of thousands of people have turned up to say farewell to the woman who put the spotlight on the plight of India's poor. The question now is whether the world's compassion will die with her. Mark Austin, News at 10, Calcutta.
Now boxing, and the British WBC super middleweight champion Robin Reid just managed to hold on to his title in Widnes tonight. Reid looked lacklustre for much of his fight against the Frenchman Hassan Sharifi and only occasionally troubled his opponent, as here in the 8th round.
Sharifi's legs wobbled. Reid's got him going here.
But he had done enough, and the judges gave him the bout on a split points decision. Well, that's the news from London. Now back to Edinburgh and Trevor MacDonald.
Julia, if Scotland has indeed voted today for a parliament of its own, then this state will go down in history. Actually, it already has gone down in history. On September the 11th in 1297, 700 years ago, the Scottish warrior William Wallace defeated the English at Stirling Bridge. Today, a new statue of Wallace was unveiled in Stirling. And if you think that Scotland's national hero looks a little familiar, then that's because the sculpture was modelled on Mel Gibson, who played Wallace in the Hollywood film Braveheart. And it was extremely popular here in Scotland. ITN will have referendum results on bulletins throughout the night, and for a full roundup, there'll be a morning news at 5:30. We're back in Edinburgh again tomorrow with the outcome of the vote. Until then, from here in Edinburgh and from London, good night.
Good evening. We've all enjoyed some fine weather over the last few days, but things are changing now. It's becoming colder and more showery and windy too from the north, especially through tomorrow and Saturday. A closer look at the weekend in just a moment. As for tonight, there are outbreaks of rain around now. The thicker cloud with the weather front moving into the south overnight. Clearer spells further north, a scattering of showers, lowest temperatures around 7 or 8 degrees. And that's how we'll start the day tomorrow. Cloudy in the south with further outbreaks of rain. But once that cloud moves away, the southeast will become fairly bright and dry. Further north and west, though, lots of showers through the day tomorrow, especially in the exposed northwestern parts of Britain, where the showers become heavy and very blustery. Temperatures tomorrow are high of around 17 or 18 at best for most of us, a good deal lower than that in the northwest, where you'll have the strong winds as well. And the weekend, Scotland takes the brunt of the showers again on Saturday, heavy, thundery, blustery showers across the north through Saturday. The rest of Britain having a fair number of showers too, perhaps most scattered in the far southeast. Sunday, a better day for most, fewer showers, though more cloud and rain in the far northwest. That's it. Good night.
Power Gen. Generating electricity whatever the weather.
This is one regiment full of character.
Hello, good evening. I'm Anna Maria Ash. This is London Tonight. First, the convicted paedophiles who infiltrate children's charities based in London. British law prevents anyone running a children's charity if they have convictions for fraud, but there's no such protection if they have criminal records for sex offences. In fact, one man tracked down by our investigator claims his good work makes up for his crimes.
This is Donald Dunk from Bromley in Kent. For the last 30 years, he's helped run 2 children's charities. As Vice President of the Association of Combined Youth Clubs, he's accompanied its patron, Princess Anne, and President David Dimbleby to official events. Dunk was also closely involved with the London Children's Camp, another charity which takes underprivileged youngsters from the capital on holiday to this campsite in Kessingland, Suffolk. Donald Dunk may give off an air of respectability, but the truth is he's a man who harbours very unnatural feelings towards children. We've discovered that he has paedophile convictions stretching back over the last 30 years. He's certainly someone that no parent would want to be near their children. In 1955, Dunk received his first conviction for child abuse. 15 years later, in 1970, he was caught again, this time for sexually assaulting a child in the changing rooms of a swimming pool. And then, July the 14th, 1990, at Dartford Magistrates Court, he was found guilty of molesting an 8-year-old boy and possessing paedophile videos. But far from showing any remorse, this is a man who tries to justify his actions.
I will say to that boy, after my arrest, twice contacted me and said, when are we going to meet again? Twice.
We've been aware for some time that paedophiles have been infiltrating charities so that they can get close and abuse children. Now, what we have to do is look at ways and means of preventing this, cooperating with charities, local authorities and police to find a strategy that works.
Donald Dunk has now resigned from both the Association of Combined Youth Clubs and the London Children's Camp.
Mr. Dunk, is this finally the end of your charity days? Yes.
This is Glenn Campbell for London Tonight.
2 women have been jailed for stealing soft toys and other items left in memory of Princess Diana outside Westminster Abbey. The 2 Slovakians, both in their 50s, were each jailed for 28 days. Horseferry Road magistrates said the sentence had to reflect public outrage over the crime. A London man has been jailed for 21 months for publishing what's been described as a vile and evil race-hate magazine. Dustman Mark Atkinson, who published the Stormer magazine from his Feltham home, was jailed for stirring up racist violence. The court heard Frank Bruno's mother, Lynette, received death threats after her name and address were published in the magazine. Finally, there was drama at Biggin Hill in Kent today with a high-speed air and car chase. But the action was no cause for concern. It was to promote a Battle of Britain Open Day this Sunday.
It's a pure publicity stunt, but it's irresistible and has the advantage of keeping the camera crew wide awake. .007 and BMW are the obvious stars, but every inch is sponsored. L'Oreal are holding his hair down. The mixture of new and old this year is more apparent than ever. This Spitfire will be leading the Red Arrows formation, with crucial manoeuvres timed before the crowd.
At which point they'll put their smoke on, and I've asked the guy flying directly behind me that if I start smoking, would he let me know?
The Pierce Brosnan lookalike and his pilot pull these stunts for movies and air shows all around the world. Needless to say, they have to get on quite well.
And sometimes when we come head to head, I can see his face and I think, God, this guy's really coming for me this time. But then when we're on the ground, we're great friends.
No, there's nothing unusual about it. It's standard sort of display flying.
Yeah, right. Well, Saturday will honour the historic victory of veteran aircraft. Today was certainly a triumph of modern hairspray. At Biggin Hill, this is Liz Wickham for London Tonight.
And that's all from us just now. London Weekend Tonight returns tomorrow at 6:25. Until then, good night.
Hello again. Well, changeable weather is on the way, but here in the southeast it'll probably only last a couple of days. By Sunday things will be settling down again, so a reasonably good outlook. Tonight though, a lot of cloud around, some showery outbreaks of rain coming in from the west. It's not as cold as recent nights, lowest temperatures around 11 and that's 52. A cloudy morning tomorrow with further outbreaks of rain, much of it light and fairly patchy, but there's certainly the chance of 1 or 2 heavier bursts before brighter weather comes back again from the north and west during the afternoon. We'll probably end the day on a fairly sunny note and temperatures eventually up to a high of around 19, at very best I think 17 or 18 for many. So it will feel much fresher tomorrow even after those showery outbreaks of rain have gone away. A changeable couple of days.
For a more detailed 5-day outlook, call Weather Update on 0891 11 0000.
Travel Update in association with Business Pages.
Hello, good evening. Looking ahead to this Saturday, it's the last night of the Proms, and 50,000 people are expected to attend the Proms in the Park event in Hyde Park and the concert in the Royal Albert Hall. Delays will occur throughout the area, and North Carriage Drive in Hyde Park is closed for the event. Traffic is likely to build up from 5 p.m. on Kensington Road, Park Lane and Bayswater Road. Best to use public transport. One of France's most innovative circus troupes comes to Three Mills Island Green in Bow tomorrow, so possibly extra traffic on the Blackwall Tunnel northern approach. And finally, the AA warns of roadworks on the A41 Finchley Road southbound at Fortune Green Road. That's it from me. Good night.
Travel Update with Business Pages.